Welcome back to the Tool Crib. Today I want to talk to you about writing instruments that I use in my profession. And as a millwright, I go through and I use a wide variety of writing instruments. And those are going to include a mechanical pencil, Markall Silver Streak, Milwaukee Inksol, different types of Sharpies, usually just a standard G2 Pilot pen because I have a bad habit when I'm at a print table and I'm marking up prints. I have a bad habit of leaving my pen lying around, so I use something that's a little cheaper, a little more ubiquitous, so I don't worry about losing it. And then Soapstone as well. I'll go through all the attributes of each one of these and show you why I like to use these different types of markers. The first one that we're going to talk about is the Rotring Rapid Pro 2.0. Now the 2.0 specifies the size of the lead. This is a 2mm lead or graphite that they use in these. And the reason that I like this is for a couple different reasons. First of all, it's very robust. It's all metal construction except for the little plastic red ring that they use as the divider point there for the barrel and the top. So the reason I like this is because of its retractability, how smooth it is for its retraction. So it's very fine to be able to just get that out, get that lead positioned out exactly where you want it. You're not fiddling around with clickers that have a long travel to them. So that's one of the reasons that I like it. The second one is I like the barrel tip on here. And the reason I like that barrel tip is because sometimes we'll lay out ellipses where we have to run a string line and use that in combination with the string. And because of the smooth, straight barrel of this, it just seems to work better when using that in that particular situation, so that the string isn't catching on the pencil. It just makes for a better mark. The next thing that I like about this is the fact that it has its own built-in sharpener. So on the back here, you just pull that off, slide it over, and then you can sharpen your lead up to give you a much more fine point. Now this is great for doing marking on wood. It's great on marking on metal that is primed in a lighter color, and it's great for marking when you don't want a permanent mark. And I like having a mechanical pencil as opposed to a regular carpenter's pencil or something like that, because it just alleviates the need to be sharpening it up all the time. And then I use just some standard art graphite, 2B graphite refills in 2mm. This one has 36. I think I've had this for I've had a couple of them for about 3 years now, and I may have gone through 4 of these leads in that time span. So it lasts a very long time. It's very well constructed. It's a little more on the expensive side as far as mechanical pencils go. There are options for 2mm that are a lot less expensive, but they're not quite as refined as the Rotring Rapid Pro 2.0. The next marker that I like to use, or writing instrument that I like to use, it's pretty much a mainstay for anybody who works in the metalworking industry. So if you're a welder or millwright like me, then the Markall Silver Streak is kind of a must-have. So this uses a special type of lead that works really well on marking on steel. So you can see that it shows up extremely well, and it's very resistant to rubbing off. You can get it off by just rubbing on it a little harder, or by using a damp cloth to remove it. Now where this really shines is when you are marking steel that's going to be cut with a torch or with a plasma cutter. It's very heat resistant. So as you're cutting along with the torch, it doesn't remove the mark in front of you until you pass over it directly with the heat. And this is one of the reasons why the Markall Silver Streak is one of my favorite. Now it is a retractable lead, but it doesn't retract like that pencil does. You have to just pull it out and set it to where you want it. Now one of the great things with this one as well is it has a built-in sharpener. So for times when you need to, of course you have to make that a little longer. For times when you need to get a more sharpened point on it, you can sharpen the tip up on this thing and get a lot finer point. So you can kind of see that lead coming out of there. And when we get done, not a bad point. So when you're doing more precise work with it, it comes in extremely handy. And it's one of my mainstays. It's one of the markers that stays with me at all times. The next marker that I have, but I don't carry this with me, but there's situations where I need it. Now, Soapstone has been around forever. Soapstone is really great at marking on steel that is oxidated a little bit. So if it has a little bit of oxidation on it, it's also really good at marking on concrete, which is where I'll use it for most times these days. So you can see that it does make a mark on steel like the tabletop here, but it is a lot less resistant to being rubbed off or for cutting with it. But what it really shines at is just making, because the size of the lead, it doesn't really have precision. I mean, you can grind them down to a point. It doesn't really have a sharpener. You just set it on a grinder and just spin it around until you can get a more fine point out of it. But where it really shines is making non-permanent marks on concrete floors. So we do a lot of layout work where we need to lay out for positions for hangers and stuff like that. And being able to mark on a customer's floor, but put a mark down that you can easily remove is advantageous at times. And so this is a situation where soapstone comes in extremely handy. The next writing instrument that we use a lot are Sharpie fine points. Now, in the black version, this really shines on writing on galvanized metals, where these other markers don't necessarily do that very well because the zinc coating on galvanized makes it pretty slick. So you need something that contrasts well against it and will adhere to it. And the Sharpie fine point permanent markers do the job really well. Now, they are permanent per se, but you can remove them. So if we're doing like conduit bends where we're marking off precision bends for running electrical, then we can use a Sharpie, but you can always go back with a little alcohol rubbing pad and remove that mark later. Now, where we use Sharpies a lot is in layout work. So we'll be in a customer's plant and we'll have to lay out sometimes hundreds of feet in length for different types of runs, for duct runs, for positioning hangers. And Sharpies really come in handy there. And what we'll generally do is put down blue painter's tape. Now you can see that the black does a fairly decent job of contrasting against that blue. So it's not bad, but what I really like to use with the blue painter's tape is their metallic silver version of their Sharpies as well. So if we mark this one on there, you can see just how much better that contrasts against that blue. And so you can see it at long distances. And then when we're done with our layout, so we'll use this in situations where we need to leave the layout marks down for an extended period of time over the course of a week or two or sometimes longer. And then when we're done, we just go back and peel up the painter's tape and our customer's floor is right back to normal. Now the last marker that we like to use is the Milwaukee Inksol Fine Point, and they come in a variety of different colors. I have a packet here of green, red, blue, black, and they also have a metallic. This is their silver. They also have one in a gold, if I'm not mistaken. But where the Milwaukee Inksol really shines is writing over oily surfaces. So I've taken a little bit of motor oil and just given this an oily sheen across this flat bar and kind of show you how this performs. So if we take this off, we'll just set a little square across there and we can write a mark, and you can see how that really writes well over the top of oily surfaces. Of course, the same thing is pretty much true of the silver streak, where it makes a pretty decent mark. If we do that same thing in soapstone, it'll make a mark, but it comes off very easily. So if we wipe those, just a simple wipe across there, though all of them, if it's too oily, are going to come off, the Inksol performs really well in that situation. And if you want to just do it on standard dry steel, it does a very nice fine point mark as well. So I don't use these as often as I use some of the others, but it does have its place. I just prefer the Sharpies because I have the silver streak, which marks well over oily surfaces as well. So while I use these once in a while, it's not something that I use that often. So these are some of my favorite marking instruments, is particularly these two, along with just a standard ballpoint pen I'll carry with me at all times. And these I'll carry as supplemental whenever I need them. So I hope that you guys can garner some use out of this video, and maybe, writing instruments are not the sexiest topic in the world, but they're pretty important when you need them. My name is Ben. You've been watching the Texas Tool Crib. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next one.